In today's video, I'm going to show you my best hacks for designing a space from start to finish. I follow these steps every time I design a space for a client. Everyone starts off with a paint or your most viewed color in a space. I do the complete opposite. I save that for a much later time. And the first thing that I start with designing any space, myself included, is the feeling that I want it to evoke when I'm actually in it. A space is more than just the items you put in it. It's about the experience you have and how you feel. Do you want it to feel cozy? Do you want it to feel sophisticated? Do you want this super uber contemporary style? There are so many elements that play a crucial role into designing your space, and a feeling should always be at the forefront. I'd also like to thank Article for sponsoring today's video, but we're gonna get into that a little bit later. Whenever I design a project, I always bring in 3 key factors that articulate not only the design direction, but the look and feel of the space. So I'm gonna give you 3, for example. Let's start with cozy. Think of what materials and colors really inspire a space. Is it chocolate brown? Is it rich velvet? What colors and elements make a space feel cozy to you? Cozy to me is all about how color develops a space. I want to sit down on a sofa or in a room and feel completely surrounded. I want lower ceilings, or I want at least the visual distraction of lower ceilings. I want low level light. I want light that helps travel through the space. I want it dim. That's my version of how I see cozy. I also want to think about movement in the space. Now, movement can mean a number of things. It can mean the vertical or horizontal orientation of different items and how they expand or contract a space. It can also be a wallpaper and how you watch it kind of go through the space. It could also be a marble and the bold veining impact that allows you to travel from point A to point B. Movement is one of my biggest considerations that I like to include in every project, because if I'm being honest, every space has a monotony of square, rectangle, square, rectangle. That has always been the standard of every element into it. So softening it allows you to bring in that really nice soft juxtaposition. I think about movement, I think about water.
Be water, my friend.
Think about my eye traveling through a space, like I said before. So I want you to have those visual connections from start to finish as you move through a space. Let's take sophisticated. This can be a complicated one, but if we really dial it down to what a sophisticated space looks like, it's clean lines, it's contemporary, it pays homage to classic design. What elements of these can also make a space feel really connected to have it feel grown? To me, sophisticated is a space where a grown-up lives. There's art that matches their interior design style. It also matches their personality. There's elements like decor, there's coffee table books that actually interest them. So we're gonna go with cozy, sophisticated, and movement for this style. If all you have is word art in your space, it tells me you have no taste. One of my biggest pet peeves in small spaces is not having enough storage solutions. Article has a lot of really great space-saving solutions with their furniture pieces. I'm gonna show you my favorite ones that I think you can use in your space. The first one is going to be the Carl lift top coffee table. Coffee tables are one of those pieces that you usually don't think about utilizing storage with. What's great about the Carl lift top coffee table is that you can actually utilize all that additional storage within, and it has a lift up surface. So if you're working from home or eating from the sofa and watching TV, this is the perfect item for you for small spaces. It also comes in 3 finishes, a black, an oak, and a walnut. I personally love the walnut myself. I actually have a few pieces from Article already in walnut, and they work so well in my space because that deep undertone matches with everything. If you live in an apartment or a small condo, under bed storage is absolute key. The Lanaya panel bed is a great option because it offers drawer storage underneath the unit itself, so you can hide everything away. Depending on the layout of your space, I know those side drawers are not always operational, so the Pactea is another great alternative that you can have all of your storage from the front instead of the sides of the bed. The Maribo storage ottoman is another great option that you can have anywhere in your space. You can have it in your bedroom, you can have it in your den, additional seating in your living room. What's great about this ottoman is that it flips up so you can hide all of your additional items, your books, your blankets, your towels, everything all in, because at the end of the day, it's all about utilizing every possible square inch of your small space. These are just a few of the many items that Article offers for small space saving solutions. If you want to check out their entire catalog, I highly encourage it. What's great about all of their options is they have them in so many different finishes. So if you're not a white oak girly and you're a walnut person, they have that option for you. You can also get $50 off your first purchase of $100 or more with the link in the description. Now, class is in session. I'm going to give you a test. Now, don't be scared. It's no right or wrong answer. I want you to start going on Pinterest, going through magazines, books, decor. I want you to look at specific elements that draw your attention, whether it be the sofa in this picture, whether it's the wallpaper in this one, whether it's the rug, whether it's the light. I want you to find a whole collage of photos that draw your attention based on the feeling that we just went off of. This is a test that I do with all my clients to understand their interior design tastes of what they like and what they really dislike. It also gives me more insight into the photos of inspiration that they send me, because they can send me a beautiful inspired space that looks perfectly curated, when in reality, they just like the light in it. This makes it a lot easier to understand, so we're both on the same page. This test can be challenging if you don't have the eye for design, but stick with me because I promise you, this is going to allow you to better understand your personal design style. If you're struggling trying to find the right images for this vision that you have, Google these items or Pinterest them based off the feeling that you want. Type in sophisticated living room, type in cozy bedroom, cozy living room. This is going to be your introduction into spaces designed from that feeling. Once you have this full collage of all these items that you see together, look at the bigger picture. Even though there's a bunch of different room types, a bunch of different colors, look at them as a whole and see what you like and what you don't like, because now that you've compiled these, some of these pictures may not match the design style or the color palette you want to achieve, which means you need to remove them. Now, I told you that test wasn't that hard, was it? I mean, I know it can be, but bear with me because the next step is the fun part, and it's going to be the color palette. The color palette is going to be one of the most challenging parts because you need to understand the warm and the cool undertones of these finishes and colors and what actually works well together. The collage you just put together is going to help you determine the color palette now. Look at the colors, look at what works and what doesn't work as a whole. You could have a red and a blue, which look great together and complement each other, but it may not be the look that you're going for. You could also see a bright yellow and a red. Those both are warm undertones, but once again, together, they may not be the look that you want. So now how do we find the color that you're actually looking for? These images are going to be the perfect representation of how your color palette is determined based on the images that you find. Is there a reoccurring color of red? Is there a reoccurring color of blue? This is where you start to look at the different levels of saturation and the hue as well. Do you want a bright cobalt blue? Do you want a navy? There's lots of different elements in these photos that are going to dictate the colors that are going to work that you want. There are no real wrong answers here. I mean, there are because you're here listening to a professional designer, but these colors are very specific to you and how you feel and what you want the space to feel like. Find as many colors as you can in this collage and start putting them together. Your eye is going to tell you naturally what looks best together and what doesn't work. Now that we found those colors, the hard part is understanding the undertones. Like I said before, colors will fall either warm or cool. So they're either going to have a yellow, orange, or red undertone. Sometimes they have a peach. Or on the flip side, you have the cool tones. You have purple, you have green. These are the undertones of the color that naturally pull cooler in a space versus warmer. These paints right here are the perfect representation of warm and a single cool. At first glance, they all look like a nice neutral white until you start exploring the colors beside each other. This is going to tell you what's warm and what's cool. The foolproof method with this is to keep warms with warms and cools with cools. You can start dabbling by introducing warm and cool tones with each other, but you need a pretty good design eye to understand how to make that work. So for this exercise, just stick with one or the other. So we already talked about the feeling that you want in your space, as well as taking the design test to see what really works, and we found the color palette that you like. And now we're going to talk about spatial planning. This is all about the elements in your space and how they interact with each other, as well as how much room you have in there to play with. In simpler terms, it's talking about furniture arrangements and the spatial planning of how you move in and throughout the space. If you don't have a program like us interior designers to look at a space from an aerial view, this can be a little challenging. These are a few picture references of how you actually move and interact with a space. Are you going straight through? Do you have to go around furniture items? How are you getting from point A to point B in a room itself? I want you to consider what feels natural to you in the space itself so it doesn't feel super cramped. Painter's tape is going to be your best friend in this situation because I want you to measure out the elements like the furniture, the lights, and everything that you want in the space and literally tape it out on the ground. Measure everything to scale so you can understand the volume from a 2D perspective of where things are being located and how you move in a space. This is going to be the easiest way to understand the volume of these items and the amount of negative space that you need between them to actually have a room in your space. Last on the list is going to be picking out your finishes. And before you start with this, I want you to start with your star finish. And what I mean by that is this is going to be the element that completes the space. This is the element that you want your eye to land on or be the first element that you notice when you walk in. And people will ask, what is that typically? I like to think of it as the bold element in the space. It can be some artwork. It could be a multicolored sofa. It can be an area rug that's super organic and has really interesting elements to it. It can be a countertop. It can be a number of different things. So I want you to choose what in the space is going to be the element that draws you in. And sometimes this is a personal choice. This is completely up to you. If you have a piece of artwork that you inherited from a parent or someone that passed away, that is going to be your focal point. That's what you want to draw inspiration from as well. Once you've selected that star finish, I want you to think about the co-stars. These are the other finishes and elements in the space that actually complement your star itself. I want you to think about colors and elements that complement that bold finish that you want to be the star. While you're selecting your finishes, I want you to think about how this color palette relates to the amount of items that you're putting in. I want you to think about the 60-30-10 rule. 60% is going to be your larger scale items like your flooring as well as the walls. These are going to be the major color proportions for what you see in the space. 30% is going to be the breakup of smaller elements like your furniture, your curtains. They still take up a good proportion of the color palette in the room, but they're not as impactful. Last is going to be your 10%. These are going to be your bold elements or your pops that coordinate. So like what I said before, this 10% is going to be your hero in the space. This is the foolproof method for dividing a color palette in your space to make sure that your visual attention is divided equally so it feels right. This has been a really fun project I've been working on where we actually did a very warm, really colorful palette to bring in all of those warm undertones of the red to create this primary ensuite. So these are actually the renders of the space with the materials input. So it gives you a really great representation of what the space is going to look like from a volume perspective, as well as how the colors work together. So to recap, we started with a feeling. This is where I want you to create a collage of elements that really evoke a feeling in a space. Next, I gave you a little test. You went on Pinterest and Google and you started collaging these images that you liked and started picking out colors and elements like furniture, lighting, and decor that actually made you like those photos. The third step was the color palette. This is where you started doing a breakdown of those collaged items and started noticing what colors you like and what you don't like, as well as what actually works together. We then talked about spatial planning, where you understood how you were going to organize your space and how you actually move and live in it. And don't forget to use painter's tape. It is going to be your best friend. And last but not least, the funnest part of the project is selecting your finishes. We created the color palette, whether it was warm or cool, to understand what's going to work in your space. So now that you know how to design a room from start to finish, it's just as important to understand what not to do in your space. So make sure you watch my video on the most controversial design elements to avoid in your home. And that's all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. You can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Mr. Phoenix Gray for all my daily tips and tricks. And if you're ever second guessing yourself, just ask, what would Design Daddy do? Obviously follow my tips on how to design a space, obviously.